bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate the world, peaches ripe.
Is punishment in itself.
Could you go into that a little bit more? Are you saying, like, I know some of you advocate for the abolishment of prisons, which is confusing to me.
Right, so when we define prison, we're defining it within the American context as essentially the prison industrial complex, which is essentially designed to profit off of the imprisonment of people.
Absolutely.
Whether it's through state or private entities. So if we're going to look at what actually should occur when a crime is committed, it's not that we're against someone being removed from society, it's the conditions on which they're removed. Because if you make prisoners a commodity, then essentially in order for that machine to be stable, you have to provide a continuous commodity, which means that it relies on people continuously being arrested and crime being committed. So if we're going to look at like a system that I would say is better and kind of anti the prison industrial complex within America, that would be Sweden, where people are removed from society, but the primary focus is on restorative and transformative justice, and their labor isn't exploited through the means of capitalism. It would also include making victims whole.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I would love to see them forced. I would love to see victim compensation funds funded by forced labor. Personally, which I know you're against, but I think that's the.
It's not victim compensation. It's so that victims have access to resources to deal with their trauma or the negative effects of the crime.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue you just cut them a check and let them spend it how they like. You know, whether they want to spend it on therapy, don't essentially nanny state them and tell them they have to spend it this way.
No, I don't think giving people money is restorative to crimes that have been committed against them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pipe dream because, frankly, they get nothing, you know. I think it would be an improvement, personally.
That your argument, to me, doesn't solve anything. Like, giving someone money because a crime has been committed against them doesn't resolve their trauma, doesn't build confidence back within the community. It's about providing resources, not providing monetary materials.
Would you agree, though, that when someone's victimized in a crime, that there's usually costs associated with improving them and helping them get through the trauma?
Right, so it wouldn't be giving them money to cover those costs, it would be giving them those services.
To me, it just seems like the same thing. Either way, there's a cost.
It's not the same thing, because like you said, you don't care if they go to therapy or not, you just want to give them money and they can spend it on whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, not everyone trusts therapists.
Why not?
I would argue that if everyone trusted therapists, everyone would probably go to therapy.
I'm asking you why.
I think it's pretty much a personal decision. I would say the biggest thing is cost, personally. But
they don't trust therapists.
Yeah, I mean, there's a financial incentive involved with anything, you know?
Great, so another L for capitalism. Thank you.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, we can blame capitalism versus socialism. There's always a cost. I mean, those people need to eat, whether it comes from taxes or if it comes from your personal pocket. It just boils down to the question of, do you want people to make the decision?
The difference between socialism and capitalism, though, is that capitalism is the pursuit for profit.
Absolutely.
So people are incentivized for profit. It justifies unethical behavior.
So, just to make sure I'm understanding your argument, if someone makes a profit, it's, you know, unethical and, you know, they don't have your best incentive at mind?
I didn't say that. I said it justifies unethical behavior. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, and I don't know why now you want to go down this because you just admitted it, that people are untrusting of therapists because it's a for-profit system. Yes, if a therapist sees that 10 sessions are going to be more profitable than 2 sessions, then they may drag out the sessions in order to make more money. Where if it's just about the actual labor and service, and actually being effective, the 2 sessions could possibly suffice. And, that's just an example I'm not saying someone goes to 2 sessions of therapy and they're cured. I'm just showing you that financial incentive can lead to unethical behavior. It's not about the actual outcome of the service. It's about how much you profit from it.
Yeah. And, I think the big thing you got to differ is between ethics and law. I mean, the problem is everyone has a different ethical system, but, the legal system is the compromise.
Don't trust therapists because it's a for-profit system. And now I feel you're making contradictory statements. Did you want to, but I do feel we've gotten off topic. Do you want to discuss anything else?
Yeah, so here, let's, on the abortion debate, I'm pretty neutral on it. What do you say to people that legitimately believe that it's a form of murder and that they're protecting, essentially, the most vulnerable population? Because that seems to be the argument that I hear from them all the time. And frankly, I have no counter to them, because at the end of the day, it is an emotional decision on if you consider it life or not.
I asked them to define murder.
Okay, so let's say the ending life unnaturally.
What do you mean by unnaturally?
Everything dies, but due to natural causes sometimes, but where you are the one that triggers the death. Your decision is what triggered the death.
Would you say self-defense is murder?
Yes, it's a form of justified murder in my book.
So this is the issue with your definition, is that I would say the best definition of murder is unjustified killing. So therefore saying it's justified murder is a contradiction. But no, if we're, again, murder technically is a legal definition, and so if we're going to apply it legally, then no, self-defense is not. So then my question would be, what makes abortion unjustified murder?
So usually the argument I hear is along the lines of, it's an innocent child, it has the potential, and you're snuffing it out before it even has a chance. And you are the one that's pulling the trigger, so to speak, by making the decision to abort.
What obligation does someone have to sustain pregnancy?
Yeah, and I think that's where the argument breaks down, because to them, as the mother, they argue that as a mother, it's my responsibility to care for my child. If you don't care for your child, then you're a monster. That's usually how it goes.
So then we get into what is parental obligations and how do those arise? Let's say that I do become pregnant and I do give birth to this child and I do choose to perform the parental obligations until they're 18. And let's say this child comes down with a rare kidney disease to where both their kidneys are now failing and they're in need of a kidney. Should I be forced to donate my kidney?
Okay, I like that argument. That's a good one. I just like to see the pro-choice side argument, essentially along the lines of you force the decision of, does the mother have an obligation to die for the child? And I think most pro-choicers or pro-lifers will concede there's exceptions. Very few think
that you can live without one kidney. We're talking about, where does your parental obligation start? Let's say that I give birth to this child in the woods, and we're secluded away from society. And then one summer we have a really bad fire and it destroys all our crops. I still have the obligation to feed my child. Would you say that obligation includes cutting parts of my skin off in order to feed my child?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't buy that argument, because I would say I'm a bit more on the selfish side. But to them, a lot of them, they say, I would die for my child and stuff like that, and, it's my responsibility and I'd do anything for my child type arguments.
Right, and that involves consent and choice. So if they're for consent and choice, then obviously it would be unethical to force someone to sustain pregnancy. But if you don't disagree, I'm not really interested in a devil's advocate. Do you have anything else?
No. Wish you the best. Take care.
Thank you.
Hello?
You're welcome. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, but I can't see your box. Do you mind dropping down and re-requesting?
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know. I did it again. Go ahead. What's your take?
So you say trans women are women?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because woman is a social category.
But doesn't
And
woman means of the female sex, right?
I think woman is defined as a concept surrounding the aspects of femaleness.
The aspects of femaleness?
Yeah, so it can be multidimensional. That can be biological characteristics, it can be social characteristics, and it can be psychological characteristics.
When I searched up the definition of woman, it said
Oh, you're gone. Are you gone?
no.
Are you here?
Hello? It just
Okay.
it's a human being when you search up woman. So using that definition, I don't think
What did you say?
when I searched up the term woman, it just with the ad female being. So using that, I don't think a trans woman would be a woman.
What is an adult?
A person above the age of 18?
Why is it that?
Because it wouldn't be girl. I guess it'd be referred to as girl.
But why 18? Why 18?
We chose it to be that. What do you mean?
Okay, so you're using an aspect of a social construction to define your word?
I'm using what the definition of the word is to define the word.
Right, but your concept of adult is a social construction. It's not based in biology.
Yeah, that's fine. Neither's trans women.
I can say then just female. Female is someone with the gender identity of female.
So what makes a person a woman is identifying as a woman? And then again,
essentially would say it's an internal sense of femaleness, would be what all women share.
What is femaleness?
Femaleness would be the aspects either socially, biologically, or psychologically prescribed.
So what definitions are you using? Because if we search up these words, I don't think it has all of these, like feel like social aspects. I think it's a lot more biological.
Well, you didn't use a biological standard when defining adults, so no. And if you're just going to a dictionary, I mean, that's just appealing to authority. And when we discuss words, we're essentially trying to discuss concepts. And so you can say, this is my concept of a woman, and I can have a differing concept.
So you wouldn't disagree with me?
Says something doesn't make it true. And I think Merriam-Webster actually has a definition of a woman that would contradict what yours is. So which dictionary would you like to use?
I can go back to Google and see which one I was using. But would you disagree with me if I had a different definition of those words, right, that you didn't agree with, and I came to my own conclusion on trans women not being women?
Okay, well then let's go with your definition. What is a female?
Female, I just searched up. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back so I can read it perfectly. Okay, so the definition is an individual of the sex that is typically capable of bearing children.
So if you do not have the capacity for pregnancy, are you not a woman?
No, it says typically of the sex that typically can. So if a female is of the sex that typically can have children. So I don't know if you can have children or not, but I'm assuming you're a female. And your sex can typically have children. So you would be part of that sex, just because they typically
Right, but I can't have
Yeah, that doesn't
children.
matter because
So
the sex typically can.
means that that's not a necessity.
No, it's of the sex that typically can. So that you have to
Well, then what is of the sex?
the sex that typically can have children, because the man sex can never have children, right? The male sex can never have children. The female sex typically, I know there's cases where
Technically, there are people who are classified as male who could have the capacity for pregnancy.
okay, we're talking about like some super rare case with, I don't know, some problem happened, but
It's not a problem, it's just a random variation.
Yeah,
So,
because-
yes, how would you classify that person? Would they be a woman?
I have no idea. I have not enough. I don't know enough about that certain very rare disorder or whatever you want to call it. So I don't know. I wouldn't talk about that. But when we're talking
And
about
with your concept, you're not able to properly classify people, then how can you really determine who's a woman or not?
well, we're classifying the two main and majority of people are not don't have these cases, right? Okay, so if we're just talking about the majority here, we don't need to.
If your classification has exceptions, then it's not a good classification system.
I'm sure there's plenty of classification systems that have an exception when it comes to some people who are very, very rare. But I think we're getting a little besides the point here.
No, because you're essentially trying to perpetuate. Would you say that there is a sex binary?
What does that mean?
So I have an issue when people want to come and discuss aspects of gender and sex and don't know simple terms.
Sex binary? Okay. If you don't want to explain it to me, that's fine. You don't have to.
Right. So that to me says you don't really know enough about sex classification, gender identity, the socialization, psychological aspect, which is why you're using very rudimentary arguments like this is what the dictionary says.
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like you really had a response to what I was saying because you were just.
I do have a response, but my response uses words that you don't understand.
Your response was trying to find some super rare case and saying that my classification didn't make sense because there was just one person, or not one person. I'm sure there's more than one person, but.
The definition that you gave is not an accurate or appropriate definition in order to accurately classify because you're only basing it on one characteristic. I don't think you know the many characteristics that determine sex.
Well, there was one more. It was a comment and it said eggs had something to do with eggs. So that was another classification in that.
Right.
Definition.
So there can even be males born with essentially ovarian tissue, which has eggs inside of it.
And would they be able to bear offspring?
If they were exposed to estrogen later on and had a uterus, possibly, yes.
Okay, so not naturally.
Well, estrogen occurs through puberty. So it would depend essentially on how the body, what hormone the body produces, and essentially the androgen receptors and how they receive them.
So are you telling me that a naturally male-born person would be able to have, naturally, not like, we're not going to go through like a bunch of surgeries, right? Naturally be able to have a child?
It would depend on a lot of other things occurring, but
Yeah, with all those factors occurring, that would.
theoretically possible. Because I don't know if you like understand essentially when it comes to like the capacity for pregnancy, there has to be a number of things that fall into line for pregnancy to occur. And so saying just someone is born with eggs does not mean they have the capacity for pregnancy, which is why we can see that many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy.
Yeah.
And again, the idea, like when you classify someone as a woman, you don't know if they have a uterus. You don't know if they have eggs.
Yeah.
You are completely basing this classification off of social cues, not of it really any biological evaluation.
But it's typical. So the key word there is typically, and we can, when we talk to someone that we aren't looking at them biologically, but when we talk to a woman, right, we know in most cases that they are able to in not all cases, of course, but they are of the sex that typically can have children. And they act differently. They have a lot of different chemicals and things in their body than men. Okay, so
You mean it acts differently?
they act differently than men do. Women, you don't think men and women act differently?
I think through certain socialization aspects, but no, I don't think your sex determines your behavior.
You don't think that there's any similarities in the way women act and the way men act?
You would have to prove that in terms of that's a biological outcome.
Even if it's not a biological outcome, you don't think there's a similarity in the way they act?
If it's not a biological outcome, then what causes it?
Society? I don't know, but
Right, so then we go into the socialization aspect. And if you acknowledge that there are socialization aspects, then you acknowledge that gender is something outside of sex. Do you wear dresses?
do I wear dresses? I do not wear dresses, no.
Why not?
I don't think they would fit me very well.
There are many dresses that can fit
No, like
men.
fit me personally, like no, not like size wise. Just like, they wouldn't. I wouldn't like wearing them. Yeah, I don't think they'd look.
Why wouldn't you like wearing them?
Because I like wearing more manly clothes. Because I'm a man.
Why do you consider a dress not manly?
Because it's been something that women have worn for since the beginning of humankind.
Great, so you recognize this social construction. Do you think if we put you in a dress and sent you to like a football game to cheer in the stands, that you would feel some internal discomfort?
I would feel internal discomfort anywhere with it. Yeah.
Great, so then you acknowledge that you do not wear dresses because it does not affirm your gender.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
when it comes to someone who is trans, the dress is essentially the body that they were born in. And this is someone typically with gender dysphoria, but can also be trans as well. There can be severe distress between the internal self-appraisal of your gender and your outward appearance.
Well, if they wore a dress, right, and they were a woman, that would be affirming their sex.
Right. So wearing a dress for some women it affirms your gender, because again, if you put on a dress, does it make you any less male?
Biologically, of course not.
Right. So it's something that is a social construction to where you actually experience psychological distress. And someone who has an internal sense of femaleness, who has a male body, can experience that same distress just as you would wearing the dress.
Okay. What's the point there? Just because they don't feel like they should be wearing it.
Feeling. It's more than a feeling. I think people who say feeling don't really have any appraisal of identity. What makes someone gay?
They are attracted to the same
I'm
sex.
saying what causes someone to be gay?
Well, that's a very controversial topic. Some people think you're born gay. Some people think it's a societal thing. You get influenced. I don't know the exact science. I don't think there has been proven science either way.
So if someone comes to you and says, I am gay, do you disagree with them and be like, no, of course let's just say it's a gay man. Of course you're attracted to women. You're a man, and men are attracted to women. Therefore, you can't be gay.
What? In most cases, men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. But I'm not saying.
I'm going to take this idea of a sex binary, that because your sex essentially determines identities and attributes about you, then I think you would have to apply this to sexuality as well. So would you tell a gay man, no, you're not gay, you're straight and you're attracted to women because you're a male?
Well, I don't. Who said that it was coded that you need to be attracted to women?
This is a part of the sex binary or even gender binary. We're just on a different level of it. That's why in the 90s and prior to that, there was huge stigma around homophobia because it went against the gender binary, that males are attracted to females and females are attracted to males.
I mean, it does. That's what majority of people are. So it does go against it. It's not normal.
valid in their identity? Yes or no?
I'm sure someone who says they're gay would be gay. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah.
Why do you accept that? And how do you know someone is gay?
I don't know, but I'm trusting what they're saying.
You only know when they tell you, correct? So why do you take validity in them telling you that I have appraised myself internally and understand that I am gay, but you don't when it comes to transgender identities?
Because transgender is much more biological, right? We can see that they are actually a male. Okay, we can see that they're actually a female. We can see this. We can't see if they like men or if they like women. Okay, we can't see that.
Just because you're a male representing phenotypically does not mean that you do so internally. Gender identity comes from the brain. Can you see if they have a male or female brain?
I'm sure there's differences in the male and female brain. I'm not like I don't know too much about the brains.
A brain has been debunked.
Say again?
A dimorphic brain has been debunked.
So women and men have the exact same brain size-wise, everything-wise?
That's not what I said.
What'd you say?
I said dimorphic brain has been debunked.
Yeah, you need to tell me what dimorphic means.
It essentially is that there is a male brain and a female brain, that there's two different variations, and there's not.
So they're the same, is what you're saying.
No, each brain is individual. And even if we were to go based on brain scans, there have been brain scans of trans people who show to be more aligned with aspects of female brains than male brains.
And is that not just are there males who have more female brains that never identified as trans? Did we look at that study too?
I don't know. I don't think brain scans necessarily determine your transness. Again, this is something psychological, just as sexuality is.
Well, I mean, in the definition that I use, when you were talking about social, the way they live, so their life, right? The way they act, the way they, put themselves out there. It's a much more, social thing, much more blah, blah, blah. But the definition that I used, was a lot more biological, right? A male, man, female.
You actually define adults, and you did not base it on biology. You based it on a social construction.
Well, I'm sure the is through the way our brain develops. I think there's some science behind that, like, oh, they can make these decisions at this time because their brains, blah, blah, blah.
The only valid biological argument I would take for an adult is when you've reached puberty. So by that logic, you would have to say 12-year-olds if they have reached puberty are adults.
Have you looked at the sciences behind an 18-year-old brain compared to a 30-year-old brain as opposed to a 12-year-old brain and see like, oh, this.
Yeah, I don't know why you're determining adultness in terms of maturity based on the brain. To me, that's just arbitrary.
So what do you think you should define adultness by?
The way that we categorize animals, essentially, if they've gone through puberty. That's what means female and male. Or I'm sorry, adult and...
But I still don't see the problem, even if we use adult as a social construct. I don't see the problem with my...
Use a social construct within your definition. I don't know why I can't. And don't tell me you're making a biological argument when you're not.
You can use whatever definition you want. But when I use my definition, right, are you
trans women or women?
Yeah, that's you. Using your definitions, you think that. But using my definitions, I think that they aren't women.
I'm not interested in a semantical argument. This is about concepts. So when we talk about the concept of gender, it's just beyond definitions, which is why I don't think you're prepared for this conversation.
I think I'm plenty prepared.
That's why you're just pointing to the dictionary and saying, "Look, I'm right."
Because we're using words, okay? We have to know what these words mean.
You recognize that definitions change.
Of course.
Great. So do you think that could be appropriate to just change the definition?
No.
Then what? Why do you recognize that definitions change, but you won't accept that this definition can be changed?
No, it can be changed. I'm not saying it can't be changed, but I don't think it should be changed. I think definition's fine.
Why?
What?
Why?
The only reason people would change it is to, they would say, or like indicating or of the female sex or denoting of the female sex. That would try to include the trans community in that definition.
What is wrong with that? We changed the definition of marriage to include gay people.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's what I don't think personally that a male can be a female or a woman, okay? And same other way around. So that's, I mean, the definition.
You shouldn't change the definition because of my personal bigotry.
Bigotry? I wouldn't say I'm a bigot.
Why not?
Because I love all the people. I love everyone.
You obviously don't. You want to have a definition of woman that is trans exclusionary.
Just because I don't think that's a thing. If there's something that's proven to me that, like, biologically, there's...
Why does it have to be biologically? Gayness is not proved biologically, and you accept that.
I don't know how much I accept that. I don't know. I was just...
Wait, I asked you what causes people to be gay, and you said we don't know. And then I asked you if someone who says they are gay, you validate that identity, and you said yes.
You're right. I did say that. Yeah, okay. So I say that...
How old are you?
I'm 18.
What year?
2005.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Michaela, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
You're not cool?
I can't see you. I can see him now, but I can't see you.
Well, that's
I think
weird.
it might be your problem because I can see her thing.
Okay.
So you would like to, is what you're saying, you'd like to change the definition so it includes trans people?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's something you'd like to...
We already have. God, where did it go? Within Merriam-Webster. Where is it? A woman belonging to a particular category as by birth, residence, membership, or occupation.
So, but you can't say that if someone uses another definition, right, they're wrong. You can't say, I mean, who's going to say...
I'm not interested in the semantical argument. I'm interested in the concept. And when we talk about gender identity and gender itself, it's not just a reference to biological sex. And biological sex in general is not binary. Not all people either have all of these characteristics or none of these characteristics. There is a mixture of both.
I mean, I would say most females have all female characteristics, wouldn't you?
It doesn't matter if it's most or not.
Yeah, of course there's exceptions. I'm not saying there
Most
isn't.
people are heterosexual.
Yep.
Does that invalidate gay people?
I don't know. Right.
Most people are right-handed. Does that invalidate left-handed people?
What does it mean by invalidate? Like, of course
You're
there...
saying most females have these characteristics. So I want you to imagine, I'm sure you're familiar with a 20-sided die.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's 100.
Okay.
And let's say all the numbers on the 100-sided die are 1.
Okay.
And there's one side that is 2.
Okay.
And if I roll this, and I keep rolling it, and if I keep rolling it, when 2 comes up, has the die not worked?
Of course it has.
Great. So that's just the aspect of randomness. Just because something doesn't, an aspect of randomness is rare, doesn't mean that it's a defect.
Well, I mean, in that case, it's not, right? But
if we look at redheaded people are just as rare as trans people.
but I mean, again, that's biological thing we're looking at. I mean, that's just their genetics. But like that.
And that's what intersex people are. That is their genetics.
Yeah, that's just I mean, I wouldn't say a problem. It's just the way they were. It was, or would it be a problem?
Would what be a problem?
Like, would that be a problem in their DNA? Would that be like something happened that, like, you know, when
It's just an aspect of randomness.
Like, why do you think variation's a problem, Mar?
Well, usually, right, if you're born the way everyone else is, right, not everyone else, but like you're born like an average human, that is the way most people would like to be born, right? Just have everything work normally, right? Like, I mean,
Really ableist too.
Yeah,
what do you mean ableist? Bro, I'm not saying I have nothing against people who are not able, right? But you're telling me that people who have Down syndrome, right, wouldn't want to not have that.
that's messed up. Mar. That's all. It's really messed up what
No,
you're
it's
saying
not.
right now. Yeah, it
How?
is.
How is it? How's it messed up?
Like,
That's who they are.
yeah, you have no
That's-
idea if they would want to change that aspect of themselves, and to assume that they would is ableist.
So you're telling me with someone that's gonna like disable them, right? They're not gonna be able to do a lot of the things that normal people would do. They wouldn't want to.
You just said normal people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
like the
are
average person.
normal. What do you think people with Down syndrome can't do? Like, what do you?
Well, okay. Again, I mean, no offense by any of the things that I say. All right, this is purely just what I believe to be facts. Okay, I could be wrong. But Down syndrome people, okay, I think in most cases aren't as intelligent. You correct me if I'm wrong, but would you agree with me that people with Down syndrome aren't going to be as intelligent as the average person that doesn't have those?
No, I don't
disabilities?
agree with you, Mar. I don't.
You don't agree with me?
No.
Like define intelligence.
Well, just say, make it really simple, like a math test, okay? Say we got 100 people with Down syndrome and 100 people that didn't have Down syndrome. Do you think the people with Down syndrome would do as good as the people without it?
Why are you laughing?
It really depends. Like if we take 100 people who were never taught how to do math or to read.
Say they were taught in the same school. They were taught in the same school. They were both taught in the same school.
See, so it comes to like education. Yes, people with Down syndrome can do math.
Of course they can. I'm not saying they can't, but would they
Do you not
do it?
do you not understand, Mar? There are bakers, there are cooks and mathematicians that have Down syndrome. Like, why are you like you? Do you understand? They're just normal
Bakers and
people, right?
cooks? Of course they're people. I'm not saying they're not people.
No, I'm saying they're normal people.
Okay, what do you mean by normal? How are they normal?
They're just a human being.
They are human beings.
They're just I don't know why you're like, it's not a problem just because they have a variation. You're not smarter than them simply because you don't have Down syndrome.
I'm not saying that every person who doesn't have Down syndrome is smarter than every person that does have Down syndrome, but I think in most cases that people with Down syndrome are as intellectual. I'm pretty sure this is like a fact. I'm surprised that you guys are disagreeing with this. I think you guys just might not want to say that that's true, but I think deep down you guys do know that.
Why don't you give me a source?
Oh, it's not like I've researched this, but this is just through the Okay, so you really think that?
Why don't you give me a source?
I told you. I mean, I could go look for one right now, but I mean, I don't have one on the top of my head. Do you really want me to go look for one?
Yeah.
If you want. But I don't know what you're trying to. What are you trying to prove?
What am I trying to prove? What was the purpose of getting to Down syndrome?
Essentially, my take was that you're ableist by saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, the standard you're applying that most people would want to fall into is being able-bodied, what you would consider a part of the sex binary. Would you say straight?
Most people want to?
Would you say most people would want to be born straight?
I don't know. I mean,
Why won't you apply that if that's a majority of people? Wouldn't that be what you deem as normal?
I mean, yeah, the normal people, okay, because, I mean, they're outliers, right? So they wouldn't be normal in the sense of their sexuality. Of course, they're normal people. I'm not saying they aren't people, okay? Don't think I'm saying that.
Most people want to be born right-handed.
I mean, back when they were persecuted, I'm sure they rather not be persecuted over such a small thing as being left-handed and right-handed.
Race.
What?
What if we get into race?
That'll be a little bit more of a deep topic.
Would you say that most people phenotypically would want to express whiteness?
I wouldn't say that.
Why not?
I mean, why would I say that?
Well, I mean, that's the majority of people right now in the United States. Well, not
Yeah,
globally,
in the United
but
States.
Yeah, that
So?
would be Asian people. Would you think everybody would want to be Asian?
Of course not.
Then what is this principle?
Okay, that's not. There's
Where
no.
are the
There's no.
lines drawn?
There's nothing that like happened wrong, or like there's no defect. They're not like able to do anything less than anyone else, right? Okay, that's just that's just
Well,
they play.
Socially, people would disagree with that.
What do you mean?
That there would be social barriers and biases based on either sex, race, ability.
Are we talking about in the United States?
I would say, I mean, sure. Well, why not?
Because I mean, in different places, people are going to be favored. Okay, like I mean, if we went to like the Middle East, right? Arab people. I mean, I lived in Saudi Arabia, right? And the Saudi Arabians that are actually Saudi Arabian, they get like way more money. My dad was their boss, and he still got more money than him. So I mean, it's normal to favor different people in different countries. Okay, I mean, that's just what happens. Okay, but I don't see the problem. I don't know what's.
Ms. Mara, is you're saying that everybody wants to be average, and that any variation within humanity is like a problem or a defect. I think that's just ridiculous. Like, I don't understand why you would be against trans women being women and being classified as such. What's wrong with that?
It's not that there's something wrong. It's just when you look at the definition, it's just that doesn't equal. It doesn't.
But Mark, we acknowledge we can change definitions. You recognize we can change definitions. You said, I'm against us changing this definition. I'm asking why.
Because I don't believe women are women. I mean, not women are women. Trans women are women. Just, I think
And
you
you
were
believe that
supposed.
because of the definition. And then you're against us changing the definition. And you don't think
And
this is because of any bias you have against
of
trans
course,
people?
I have my own personal belief that, I mean, males should be males and women should be women.
What do you mean males should be males? What does that mean?
What do you mean males should be men? That they shouldn't try to change their gender. They shouldn't try to change their sex. That's what I mean.
What does it mean males should be men? What does that mean to you?
They should, I don't know, behave like the average, not average, like, you know what I mean? Like, not behave femininely if they're a man, and, you know, just all these normal, conservative.
Femininely.
Say again?
What is behaving femininely? What is that?
So you will say that there's a masculine way of acting and feminine way of acting, will you not?
I'm asking you to conceptualize that for me, and why someone ought to be obligated to follow social constructs of masculinity and femininity.
So men in most cases, you know, they would be more. Okay, if we look at this conservatively, they'd be more, you know, like head of the household, like, you know, providers, blah blah blah.
Should men be head of household?
Say again?
Why should men be head of household?
So this would be going into more of my personal beliefs if you want to talk about that. I mean, I'm a Muslim, right? Do you know anything about Islam?
A little bit. So this is based on your religion.
Yeah, my personal beliefs. Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I'm saying this is going to go to like.
Because your religion supports an idea of a gender binary, therefore everyone who is not Islam ought to follow it.
What do you mean ought to follow it? I mean, they can do what they want, but like, I'm not going to say that they're
You
women.
just said, I don't want I want men to be men. And then we asked you what being a man is, and you said, oh, well, it's aspects of masculinity.
I didn't say I said I think they should.
Right. So why are you applying? So wait, you think they should?
If you think something's the absolute truth, right? Would you not think that everyone should, like, I mean, of course you're not going to force them. You're not going to say, oh, you have to do this, blah, 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 blah. But if you think something is the absolute truth, right? You're not going to say that they should go against it, right? You're going to try to, like, you know, if you believe it's the truth, you're going to try to, like, say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't know why when we talk about absolute truth, you're using kind of your own subjective standard.
Exactly. That's why I said you believe. That's why I said keyword believe. I believe the Quran to be the truth, right? So if I'm going to use that obviously to and this is I don't think this is going to turn to a religious debate. I mean,
I'm not interested in that now.
yeah, okay, me too.
I have a quick question.
Wait. Let me 1 second. Then Kayla, you can go, or Michaela, you can go. Why do you subscribe to a religion that justifies bigotry?
What do you mean? I mean, it doesn't say like you should bigot people. I mean, like be a bigot to people or whatever, however you use that word. I mean,
You hold an intolerance.
say again.
You hold an intolerance to other people, which is why you won't invalidate trans people's identity.
I'm not intolerant to them. I'm plenty tolerant.
Bigotry.
I'm not gonna hold any hate against a trans person. I mean, that's fine.
I just said we couldn't change the definition to be trans exclusive or trans inclusive.
I mean, you could change whatever definition you want, but like, it's at the end of the day, they're still females, right? They're still males. I mean,
You don't know how we categorize male and female.
we do. It's biologically.
You don't know what those categorizations are.
I read them to you earlier. What do you mean?
You read them out of a dictionary and they were incomplete.
I wouldn't say they're incomplete.
They very much are incomplete.
Just because of the very rare scenario that someone may have something that defies that?
No, because they were arbitrarily assigned based on one characteristic.
I mean, it wasn't one characteristic. I can read the thing for you. There was more than one. I don't know if I read all of them, but...
Why don't you just tell me what they are and how many there are?
Well, I don't know what the exact definition said, so I don't want.
So this is not knowledge that you actually have attained.
What do you mean? Is it bad for me to research something while in a debate?
You have to still refer to your notes to understand the concept. So if I were to give you the characteristics that we look at sex, I have them memorized because this is actual knowledge that I have attained.
Okay.
Not information that I am arbitrarily using to justify my opinion in the moment. You don't even know what binary means. So no, I would say you have not researched this topic. And the reason that you haven't researched this topic is because your faith tells you what to believe. So therefore, you feel there's no need for you to research your topic. What if you researched this topic and you came to the conclusion that trans women were women?
What do you mean, what if? I mean, if I came to that conclusion, I came.
Yeah, you actually researched this topic, and through scientific evidence, you felt confirmed that trans women are women. Then what?
I mean, nothing. What? Nothing.
That wouldn't challenge your faith?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, why would that challenge my faith? My faith. It's just a definition. You can change the definition all you want. You can say that women are like.
It's not about changing definitions. This is about understanding a concept. And this concept would go against this binary notion that you have of how males and females ought to act in the world.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's just saying that. I don't see the problem, though. I mean, if a male wants to act like a woman, if a male wants to act like a woman, they can act like a woman, right? That's not going to challenge my faith.
Go ahead.
I can understand that concept plenty. I just don't see how that's going to challenge my faith. Go ahead.
Mark, you said that they should be this way. Do you think if you tell someone this is how you should act and it negatively affects their life, would you now change that this is how people should act?
What do you mean negatively affects their life? Like if I tell someone not to transition and...
If you tell someone that and they're like, hey, I'm trans. And then you're like, well, I don't believe in that. That's not what our faith says. So you should go to conversion therapy so they can teach you and train you to be the gender that you say you are not. And that negatively affects them. What then?
I mean, it negatively affects them. I don't...
Would you
What do you
tell
mean?
them to keep pursuing that? Would you keep, like, let's say you had a friend, right? And y'all believe in the same religion. You had a friend and you
Yeah.
cared about this friend. And they told you actually, like, I am trans.
Okay.
Would you then say you should go to conversion therapy so you're not trans anymore?
Bro, even my friends that aren't Muslim, right? Okay, and if they do, I don't try to push my beliefs on them every second of the day, right? I mean, it's not like something I do. I have plenty of I have like one friend that's Muslim, right? Okay, so it's not like I push my beliefs. I mean, if someone's just asking me for generally like blah 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 blah, right? They're asking me for advice. Okay, obviously I'm gonna base it on my religion, but yeah. I mean,
But you tell them that they should be this way, right? That they should be cisgender and that it's wrong to be trans. So if they said, okay, you know what, regardless of the religion, I am trans and I'm just going to accept that about myself, would you support them?
I mean, I'm not going to support. I'd support the person, but the sin. I mean, it's a sin, right? So I wouldn't be supporting the sin. But like, as them as a person, I have nothing against them. I mean, they're just. I mean, everyone sins, right? It's not like.
Oh, okay, so so even if it negatively affects your relationship, you wouldn't care. Even if it negatively affects them, you wouldn't care.
What negatively affects them? That they're not.
You misgendering them because you said I don't push my religion onto people. But
Yeah,
in the scenario that I gave you, you would push it onto them. You'd be
I'm
like,
not
no,
pushing
you're
it. I'm
wrong.
asking
You're not
you.
actually trans. So
No,
I'm not going to address you
No, I'm not
as your
pushing-
gender.
I'm not pushing.
Wait, so
anything.
you would use their preferred pronouns?
If a man tells me he's a woman and he wants me to say she, her.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in most cases, I probably wouldn't. Like, I work with a male that's identifies as a female, and or not as a woman, and I say she, her. It's easier, right? I don't want to cause complications. So yeah, I don't see.
Isn't you validating their sin?
I mean, like in my heart, I don't believe that she's. There we go. See, I said it. That's just on that she or he, whatever you want to say, is a female, right? Because I mean, I know he's a male, but but I'm not gonna go and cause problems for them. I'm not gonna.
Why won't you accept the change in definition?
What do you mean? I mean, I already told you if definition changes, definition changes. It doesn't change the fact that they're still.
Someone said you're 17, so I'm gonna let you go. This person was waiting for a while. See, now this person's box, I can see loading.
Can you
I can see you now. That's great.
Yeah, we couldn't see her before. Just saying, everybody in the comments were saying we can see her, and now I can. Okay, so in the topics, I agree for everything, but about the question, is it ethical to purchase consent to sex? Well, I think it is, but it depends on where you're going to shop, I guess, because there's situation where it's non-consensual to sell your body because you have no choice and a hold of environmental things. But there's also women who does it because it suits them and they are very successful. And, you know, I know one and, it's like, I think it's ethical if you make sure from where it comes from and what are the circumstances of that, I would say company, just for the metaphor.
So essentially, you're saying that it is not. It is ethical if you can essentially substantiate that the person is like ethically sourced, if you will.
Ethically sourced, or just this person really does it because she that's what she want to do.
How would one determine that?
Well, it depends. Like I can only speak about how that person works, the person that I know, because she's my primary source. And I'd say she it's not 1 hour, that amount, and that's it. Like, it's not how this works. Before there is actual anything doing, there will be dates before for which she has to pay like the date rate, and she has to like accept to go through. You know what I mean?
And I don't feel you've answered my question. How does someone prove that purchasing this consent is ethical?
You get to know her.
You get to know her.
Yeah. That's how they all do. Like they all have their website, and but they're on the same website. You can click on their person. There's a description of her personality, and they decide starting when you can actually go through things. But before, they ask for at least I think it's 2 or 3 dates where the guy is paying everything. She's successful, like she's wearing Louis Vuitton and all these things that I don't know about.
So essentially, you don't have an answer. You get to know her, and then what? Essentially, it would be subjective that this person has evaluated that they're doing this of their own free will and not coerced. How could you ever validate that? You could go on a couple dates with someone and get to know them, and you don't know that they have a pimp.
Yeah, okay. Would you, if you get to talk with the person and analyze their personality, how they act, how they respond, and everything, if you know, like you ask question, what do you do? Do you have a degree or things like that? And I mean, you see that person is totally like doing this on her free will. That's it. That's you analyze it.
So number one, I have a problem with this in general just because that's subjective. But number two, let me ask you, if someone engages in sex with a SW and then they don't pay, is that theft of wages or is that rape?
If they wait, I lost you there. You say if the guy don't pay after they did the thing, they pay before?
No, they just choose not to pay.
Well, she don't let him do it.
Is that theft of wages or is that rape?
If he don't pay, she don't let him touch her, so there's just nothing happening.
In this specific scenario, let's just say he put the cash on the nightstand.
Yeah.
So that was a form of payment. And then they do the deed, and then afterward he picks up the cash. So therefore he's no longer paying her. Is now the crime he has committed theft of wages or rape?
That's why they don't use that type of payment.
You're not answering my question.
It can't happen the way they doing the intelligently. They have, you know, they take information of the person before.
My question. I'm giving you a hypothetical. The hypothetical is that the SW does not receive payment. So you can't change that because that's the whole basis of the hypothetical. If the SW does not receive payment, is that theft of wages or rape?
I'd say it's rape because it's rape because she gave her consent on the condition to receive payment. So the consent was not clear. It was not informed. Clearly informed, I think is the English term for because he lied to get her in bed with her.
So what? If you acknowledge that it is rape, then you're essentially acknowledging that this consent is not freely given.
No, because it was not informed.
Right. So it's it's not freely given. So it's essentially purchased through coercion.
No, because it was not coercion. He didn't. No, coercion imply an aggressiveness in it. It's not coercion. It was no. He lied to her to get in the bed. It's the same thing as saying I'm a sports player. Then that's why she said yes, but he's not a sports player at all. And she learned it after. Well, the consent was not informed. So I would categorize it too as a rape.
Right. And so do you think that grape has negative psychological effects?
Yes.
Great. So how does the exchange of money, going from one hand to the other, alleviate that psychological trauma?
Well, yeah, I know where you're going with that. I would agree that way of thinking, but would you also agree that if you get raped, just like without anything of money, just in the street or whatever,
Please say graped.
Sorry, if you get raped in the street or whatever, would you say that the responsible that there was a way to not being raped? That would you say, oh, would she wear something else or something like that?
No, of course not.
Okay, so if she just a second. So if the girl, if my if the situation is so there's nothing she could have done differently that would have prevented the rape. What if in the situation like the payment like can be prevented without a doubt?
So this is my premise here. I'm going to say it is unethical to purchase consent because consent should not be a commodity. Because just because someone has paid you, that you actually don't qualify for what consent is, which if we're talking within intercourse is freely given, informed, enthusiastic, so on and so forth. I would argue, and just to be clear, I support sex workers, not the industry itself. And I would say that under capitalism, it is because of the material conditions that people are subjected to, which is why they participate in sex work.
Can you repeat? Sorry, I understood most of it, but I'm not sure about the first.
Hello, welcome.
I don't think they're loaded in there.
I see like the box looks like right there. You can see like my hand's a different color.
Yeah, I see the box. It's just clear for some reason.
Hello, welcome. Hello. Hello?
They dropped.
Oh. They literally requested. Well, that's it for requests. We're at 46K. Why don't we go ahead and tap the screen, try and get up to 75. See, I don't even know if we're on the For You page. But hopefully that gets the live more traction and we can have more requests. Is there any topics anyone would want to see? Oh, okay, great. Not letting you back up, my guy. I do not accept devil's advocates.
Being a devil's advocate is such a cop out. You know exactly that you believe what you're saying. You just don't want to be like, you don't want to take accountability for what you're actually saying. I hate devil advocates.
How are you, Michaela?
I'm surviving. It's the first.
Hello, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So I was involved in one of your, the other day, I was involved in your talk about abortion. And I did have a question for you. Now, I am pro-choice. But what are your thoughts on the Nookers? Sorry, my cat is being a brat. The moment I start talking, he just jumped up on top of me. So, what are your thoughts about men not having a say in anything in regards to abortions, but also not being able to opt out of child support?
I don't think child support should be a civil issue. I think people should be subsidized for child rearing through taxes.
I can absolutely agree with that. All right, that was my only question. Thank you.
And ending pregnancy is not the same thing as ending parenthood. I don't know why people don't understand that.
Hello,
Hi, how are you doing?
good. How are you?
I'm good. I I was listening actively to your speech before I connect into this live you are doing. I'm not from America. I'm from Chile, South America, but I'm pretty interested in the topic you are talking. And you said something in relation with feminism. Do you really believe that feminism is the only movement that fights for equality in front of the state? That's the first question I have.
No, I think BLM does.
Okay. Um, then why do you say that you are still living in a patriarchy when in Eastern countries you have lots of things that, for example, feminists should be aware of in fighting for the freedom of those poor women that are being slaughtered for different religions or in wars, but not in the US, not in Europe, not in my country. I want to know your opinion about that.
So I think one of the critiques of feminism that we're seeing, well, one of the theories of feminism that we are seeing, which is a Black feminist theory, is intersectionality. So intersectionality is definitely looking through a lens based on people's nationality, race, ethnicity, ability, so on and so forth, age. And yeah, if we are going to recognize that other women are being exploited in other countries, that is a movement with under feminism. And I would argue one of the best ways to obviously liberate those women would be dismantling capitalism. Because imperialism and the destabilization of other countries has led to a lot of violence that women experience.
Okay, and what is imperialism for you? And what is the other question I have? Um, when you say capitalism is the devil that provokes all these problems, I don't quite get that because, we have the data, we have the numbers. You are living in one of the most free countries around the world when women actually um, they are the most empowered girls in the world, including my country, including Europe.
I
I do not believe we live in a patriarchy.
I disagree. If we look at the World Population Index, the United States isn't even voted top 10 in terms of being anti-sexist or gender equality. We're number 30 on that list.
Right?
And argue too that like America and Europe is a superpower and has like quote unquote the most freedoms for women because of its exploitation of the global South, which I would argue would be at the expense of Black and brown women and people. So no, that is not freedom of oppression for all women. That is a freedom of oppression for some white women.
All right. And I don't know what is the situation in the US with the women, but in my country, I always tend to think, like, and this is a question for you as well. Um, Businessmen, they are looking for profits, right? Would you agree with that statement with me?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, if women are less paid than men, right? Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
Okay. So if I am a businessman, I will hire women for doing any sort of job because what I'm trying to look for is for profits. And the market doesn't work like that.
No, you don't necessarily buy the cheapest form of labor or the cheapest form of supplies in order to maximize profit. I would argue that the reason that women are paid less is because their work is seen as devalued. Even when we see women enter what is considered male-dominated industries and actually start to even the playing field, that median wage within that industry is lowered. Because
And
even for
when
women doing the same work as men view that they should not be paid equally because the work is not as valuable.
Okay, and what do you think about the injustice that men suffers into this system that you say that is patriarchy? I will give you some some facts. For example, the numbers of homeless people, the majority of them are men. The wars, in
Currently,
the world, the majority of the wars are fought by men. The majority of people actually that are in jails are men. And actually in my country, and the same happens in Europe, and I don't know in the United States, but if for the same crime a man receives a huge amounts of more years compared to a woman. Where is patriarchy there?
so if we look at homelessness within the United States, typically women are undercounted when it comes to homelessness statistics because women typically, if there's a dissolution within the relationship, have children. And because they're in the possession of children, they don't want to say that they're homeless because they can lose those children. So we have that women are significantly undercounted. And if we actually look at homelessness within the last 50 years, that gender gap is reducing because of equality between genders. So if you want to say that men are negatively affected by these outcomes under the system, then gender equality is showing to reduce those negative outcomes. When it comes to men in prison, the reason that most populations are men is because men commit more violent crimes.
In my
And
country, we have more women than men, and and the system we have is like the proportion is 70-30 in terms of genders, and we have the
in
same
terms of
system as in terms of
men,
the people that are in prison.
what?
Because you were
You
saying,
said
like,
that the prison complex negatively affects men over women, correct?
okay,
Right. So that's because statistically men commit more crime. Men are responsible for about 80% of all violent crimes. When
for
we look at sentencing rates, it really depends on what the charge is specifically, as well as other aspects of your identity, such as race. But like, for example, women who unalive their partner or spouse statistically receive longer sentences than men who do the same thing. So there is some disproportionality in terms of sentencing that negatively affects women.
okay. I have another question. What do you think? Like, I think that this happened everywhere as well. Like, when you have some discos, when you want to have a party, will you, I assume that you love having parties and go out from your house, right? What do you think about, these discos that, like say free women access and men's have to pay? Where is patriarchy there?
Well, patriarchy is essentially attracting women so that men show up because men will go to places where there is more women because they want access to women. So I would say that is a result of patriarchy.
Ah, okay. But that is that there is an injustice for us as well. What I'm just trying to point out inside of this conversation is that, there are different things that we need to pay attention between genders. It doesn't matter if you are a man, again, a trainee, or whatever. You know, uh, I mean that we need
Man,
to
gay,
just pay
what?
a trans person. I mean, sorry, my English is not that good. Sorry, but I hope you can get my point. Um, just
I just
um,
want
there are
to set
different injustices we need to pay
I
attention.
just want to highlight that you said a slur. And if you say it again, I will kick you.
Sorry, what did I say? Oh,
You said tranny. Tranny is a slur.
sorry. Trans person. Then I don't know what's the word. Right? Okay, whatever. But did you get my point? What I was just saying. I'm just trying to say that we need to pay attention to different sort of injustices we have, and I do not believe we live in a patriarchy. We have different cultures, but I think Western countries have come up with the best societies in history. That,
How do you define patriarchy?
huh?
How do you
Sorry.
define patriarchy?
Well, as you defined, like feminists that tries always to portray that they have lots of injustice because they do not have
That's
the same
I'm
power or the
asking you
same access to the important points in
I'm asking
society
you
or
to
state.
define patriarchy.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Maybe it's the connection.
I'm, I'm asking you to define patriarchy.
I don't have here my dictionary to define with the right words, but patriarchy.
Okay.
Hello.
Well, welcome.
So I'm not quite pro-abortion or anti-abortion. I just see things for what they are. I feel if someone was to be raped or some kind of incest stuff, I think they have the right to have an abortion. I don't think anybody should be made to be able to carry something that they didn't willingly want.
Are you here
That
to debate?
goes and just wants to go and have fun without taking the precautions. I was raised old school.
Are you here to debate?
I was just saying, you felt that it's any different than somebody that is just pro abortion no matter the situation.
What is your question?
If you see it that if, say Kelly goes and just sleeping with all kind of people, has 10 abortions, is okay versus someone that was actually raped? Like, is there a difference in it to you?
Number one, please use TikTok censored language like saying grape. Number two, no, I don't care what reason someone has an abortion.
Dude, don't let Linda do it.
Okay, and what is your take on being feminist as far as being needed?
I would. Feminism is essentially a movement in the sense of oppression is still occurring. In fact,
Molly, can you yeah, like Molly, can you mute?
Please be quiet.
You have big background noise. Can you mute, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hello.
hello, welcome.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So are you pro-abortion all 9 months?
I think abortion, someone should have access to abortion at any time.
Okay, and why do you think that?
Because if they want to, I don't think they have an obligation to sustain pregnancy.
Oh, okay, so do you see it as like a rights violation?
Um, in some aspects, yes, but I would just say they don't have an obligation to sustain pregnancy, and they can opt out of it at any time.
Okay. And so for your abortion stance, are you like pro-lethal abortion all 9 months? Or do you not care? Whatever.
At 24 weeks, I would opt that the abortion not be lethal, unless in the case of fetal development abnormalities or the life of the mother.
Can you go into describe the fetal abnormalities?
For example, if certain aspects of your body have not developed, such as your brain, kidneys, I think T sacs or T, I forget what.
What, T18?
Yeah, T18. Essentially, fetus will either shortly die after or die during birth.
Well, I believe it would be a year after, possibly by like a 65% chance, but it can be reduced to like 18% chance if they end up getting the heart surgery. And then
Most live in 6 months.
I'm sorry.
Most live less than 6 months, I believe.
Unless they get the surgery, it depends. their risk it lowers significantly if they get this surgery. And it would mostly be within like 0 to 3 months when they
It
get this.
says children with this condition do not live past the age of 5.
That's not true. There's one that's like 26 years old, 46 years old, and
I'm talking about Tay-Sachs.
you're talking about, I'm sorry?
Tay-Sachs.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Triton. It's something that Kate Cox, her child has.
I think you get my point then.
Okay. Well, I know there's just different, I don't know, some things like I just don't want it to be like, oh, well, they don't have an arm, so this person can abort the child for like having an abnormality, as in like your arm or legs being underdeveloped.
And no,
So like
severe.
so only if it's severe to their life.
That would be a lethal, correct?
Okay, so it'd only be lethal if it was like severe to the fetus life. It wouldn't be like you could just do this whenever because
Yes, I've been very clear on this, to where either you would not survive birth or you would die shortly after.
Oh no, I get it. I'm just making sure I'm getting everything. That's all, because I'm trying to understand your stance. Because I'm pro-life. I think at the point of conception, you hold a parental obligation for being biologically connected to the child.
Where does a parental obligation come from?
The obligation could be either social or just biological, by a parent-child relation that no other person can hold between this person and this child.
So then the obligation is not transferable?
No, it is transferable. You can transfer it safely to someone else. That's the social part.
So why does someone have a parental obligation?
Yeah, to protect our children, depending on the society that you live in. I think it's like a net positive to society to like have an obligation for our children. I don't know, like I believe everyone would give an obligation to their children. It just depends on the stage. Like some people would say it's after birth.
Only if they opt into it.
Well, why do you think like you should opt into it?
Just like when it's transferable. When the person we transfer it to, should they have to opt into the obligation?
Right, but they didn't create it. That's the only problem. If you were to create this being like the biological process, you can't choose when it does happen or when it doesn't. If you have sexual relations, it ends up happening. And if this does occur,
And why, just because you created them, would you therefore have an obligation?
well, you can't opt into it, right? You can't opt into like the seed going into the egg.
Right. I'm saying that in forms of parental obligation, we give them to people because they have opted into said obligation.
Well, we don't give it. Well, we only give it if the person is able to give it.
What?
If the biological parent is able to give it up, and then we can give it to someone else if they're qualified under the care that like we would put them under. I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's
Right, so they would opt into it based on their consent. That's what I'm saying. When people have obligations, the obligation for a majority of the time would be consenting to said obligation. You would need to justify why people would be forced into this obligation.
Well, do you agree with a parental obligation after it's born to take care of it until it's able to be transferred to someone else? Like if someone gave birth in the middle of the woods, do you think that they are obligated to take care of this child until like some authorities or something can get to them?
If they don't want to be charged with kidnapping, yeah.
How would they be charged with kidnapping if they gave birth in the middle of the woods?
Because we're essentially saying that, do you think if, let's just say someone transfers their obligation and there's no one who wants to take the obligation, who then does the obligation fall onto?
Well, if you can't transfer it safely, then you can't give it up.
So that doesn't answer the question. Let's say someone wants to transfer this obligation, but there's no individual party to take the obligation. Who does it then transfer to?
Yeah, it's not. It's like they have to keep the child until they can transfer it, right? And if no one else will give it. I'm sorry?
You disagree with safe haven laws?
Oh, I do. I do agree with safe haven laws.
That who takes the obligation at that point?
What, the police, the people that have to take care of it until they can give it to an adoption clinic.
Right, the state, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Right. So if the person who gives birth into the woods does not therefore consensually agree to the obligation, then that child is therefore a ward of the state, which means that that person is in possession of someone else's property, for lack of a better word. And since they don't have the obligation, therefore they need to make sure they get it back to who has the obligation to care for the child, which is the state.
Well, do you believe people are property?
I said lack of a better word. I don't think that they're property in terms that you have ownership, that you have responsibilities and obligations. So the state essentially would be the legal guardian, and you are in possession of someone else, of a person that you are not a legal guardian for. Therefore, you have kidnapped them.
Okay, is your body your property?
Yes.
Is your genetic material your property?
No.
So your genetic material isn't your body? Isn't a part of your body?
I thought you meant in terms of the child.
Well,
You already said your body is your property. Why would you need to ask me genetic material?
well, I asked you if your body is your property, and you said yes.
Right. So then why would you need to ask me if my genetic material is my property if you're referring to my body?
I was asking if you're, well, yeah, because it's a part of your body, and you're going to basically claim your child as your property then. Because your
No.
body is your property, your genetic material is your property. If that is all part of your body, it's all part of property, I'm going to say that's your property, then that's going to include, it would follow, logically speaking, it would follow that your child would be your property because it's your genetic material, or it was a part of it.
It's part of your genetic. No, I don't think that your eggs are necessarily your genetic material. They're variations of your genetic material.
I guess.
And again, once that egg is fertilized, therefore it's no longer your genetic material. It has been altered. So no, I wouldn't claim that that's proper.
It's altered, but it's still a part of it. Like, it's still a part of your genetic material. That's where it came from. The same as how a man's. Go ahead.
Then logically, the man would have claim to said property.
It would be the woman, because she's the one that holds the egg. If
Right,
it was the man would have to hold the egg.
We're talking about a fertilized egg, and that is his genetic material.
It would be a part of it. It'd be like half.
Right, so then you wouldn't have full claim. Then you would say that the two people essentially joint own this property. But I don't see how.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, that's how we give, like, we have to have a parental obligation for men too, right? Like, men have to pay for the kid and support the kid. At least for 18 years, if they do this, like, legally, then, yeah, he would have an obligation to the kid too. So, like, both parents have an obligation.
You can, again, opt out of parental responsibilities.
Yeah, I agree that you can opt out of, like, parental, being a parent. I just think that you have to transfer the obligation safely. I don't think you can, unalive someone.
So, number one, you haven't justified to me why this obligation would fall on someone non-consensually. Because, again, we have shown that consent would be important when entering into this contract. But number two, I would not agree with you that pregnancy would be under the provision of a parental obligation.
Yeah, I think you're a parent at conception due to the child is, again, a part of you, it's a biological process, right? It's biologically yours. The biology, I'll just stand that I hold a moral standard of meta ethics into this. I'll say like this under my meta ethical preview. I'm going to hold that parental obligation is grounded in biology and, again, also a social construct between everyone. Because I don't
So
think anyone would just leave a
construct would
child
be
out into the
illegal.
streets.
The social construct would be a legal obligation.
It would be communal.
How would it be enforced?
Well, if like we don't reinforce things by like I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's like just to be a good citizen. Same thing if like someone was choking on something, you'd give them a Heimlich maneuver and invade their bodily integrity to like help them out. Yeah, I think like we should help children out. Like if a child just like knocks on your door and says, "Can you help me find my mommy?" I think like you would have like an obligation to help them. At least like take them to like the police or some kind of place to like make sure that they're okay and safe.
Do you think you have an obligation to give them a kidney?
It's why would I have to give them a kidney?
Let's just say they're in need of one.
They're in need of one. We also have other places for them to get one.
Let's just say you're the only genetic match. I mean, they have other doors they can knock on, yet you think you have an obligation to help. So do you have an obligation?
Is it my child? Well, I think you have an obligation to like give it to safety, right? So like if I say as a social like construct, do you disagree with this? Do you disagree with society like helping out children?
No, but I think that's my whole point, is that there is limitations to this obligation. Like you would acknowledge the limitation, you would not be required to give them a kidney, right?
Well, there's no point in me getting a kidney because I'm not biologically related to the child.
Why is there a point in you helping them find their parent? You're not biologically related to them.
Well, they can knock on another door, I guess, and get someone else's help. But if no one helps them, then that's bad for the society, and that child would just be alone and unalive for it to be starving and alone and not having anyone to help it.
Look, you set the obligation. You said you have an obligation that if a child knocks on your door, a moral obligation to help them.
Well, no, I'm saying that we have like a parental obligation for like just being like the biological thing and a social construct to like help children in need. I don't think that like you should give your kidney to a child because you're genetically the only match. Sure, I wouldn't say like
you
societal.
acknowledge that there's limitations to the obligation, correct?
For parents, no.
There
For
is no
society, for a social construct, for social, sure.
So if the parent gives birth to the child and then takes care of the child, and later on this child needs a kidney, is the parent obligated to give their kidney?
If like they won't alive and the child will be like they both will be alive, then yeah.
Should that be enforced by law?
To have an obligation. Well, we already have obligations for our kids. We already
Should
uphold this.
the obligation that a parent is forced by law to give their kidney?
Sure.
Should there be a legal obligation that the parent is forced to give blood?
If it's due to life-saving emergency, then yeah.
Should there be an obligation that the parent is forced to give bone marrow?
I guess it would depend, but sure.
Let's
To
say
save
that
the kid.
let's say that I give birth to this child in the woods and we're separated from society. And one summer there's a fire that destroys our entire crops. Do I have an obligation to cut off my skin to feed my child?
don't think that is safe or nutritious for the child, nor is it mentally correct for you. So I'd say no, don't do that. If you could, I don't know, do your best to feed it. Even grass would be better than that. So
Grass would not be better. No, grass has no protein, and therefore you would die from rabid starvation.
yeah, you would die
Or has no
from
fat.
you would die from like the eating flesh
You would
from
not.
a human. I would say you probably would.
No, people can live off of cannibalism.
Yeah, of the internal organs of like meats and stuff, I wouldn't say like you would be able to give enough to sustain a child's life.
Sure, you would. That's why it's just skin.
And
So that's my question. Does a parent still have this obligation? Let's even just say it's for a month.
just what do you mean? This obligation is to protect the child, and the parent has to be able to sustain like if you're going to take care of it, right? And you think it's safe for a child to eat flesh, you would say that that's safe in that scenario. I disagree. I don't
For a
know.
month? For a month? Yeah. Or they starve to death and die. You said it was fine for the bone marrow, and I mean
Wait, no,
for
yeah,
the
no, to give safely, like again, this is not harming you and taking you away from like your entire life. Like you're not, like this isn't. I
Yeah,
guess I would have to
if
change
I give
the
my
sorry, I'll change the stance on that then, because I guess I
if
can't
I give
say
my
that
child a kidney, that does cause me physiological harm and health complications.
I said if it wasn't going to be in like the risk of your life and it would both make you like both fine, then that's fine. Like if you both were going to be
Well,
fine from this procedure, then it's fine. But like if you're
what do you
both
mean
not
by
going to be
fine?
fine, yeah, I think like you should take care of your child. Um,
Right, and I'm just wondering at what extent this obligation exists. Because you were fine with blood, you were fine with bone marrow, you were fine with organ donation, but as soon as it was flesh and skin, all of a sudden you're not fine.
yeah, because it's gonna be harmful and mentally harmful for both. This is gonna be a net negative to both of you for society. Like everyone's gonna. Well, I would say like if it's going to just be like biological, you're in the middle of the woods, whatever. Every crop has burned.
I would
Then
argue
I
the
don't
same
know.
as
It would just be between.
bone marrow for blood.
yeah, like you don't think strapping someone down, a perfectly healthy person strapping them down and removing their kidney forcefully is going to cause any physical or psychological harm?
No, I wouldn't say like strapping someone down would be right way to go around. I would say that like to protect your child and make sure your child is safe from like unaliving, then you should be able to like take care of your child. And if you can't, give it up and give it to someone else who will take care of it. So
No,
like
but
if
I'm
you're not
saying
going to do this thing where like you can like give it the best of it, like the best shot that it has, and like if you're not going to find another kidney donor for it, then yeah, absolutely you have to like give it.
but you do believe into strapping them down because the parent said no, I don't want to give up my kidney. I
Yeah,
don't
then
want
just
the
give it to
health
the kid.
complications of that. I don't want to take that risk on my body. I don't want to go through any of that. So you believe by law that we should be able to strap them down, harvest their organs to save another person's life.
No, I didn't say that. I said then that like that child should be like either removed or given to someone else. The obligation should be taken by someone else if you're not going to give it the help that it needs. Um,
No, I'm talking about kidney
it,
donations because you
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
if there's no kidney donation and like no one else is going to give it a kidney, why do you think your child should suffer and unalive? And why wouldn't
No,
you try and help it?
okay, what I'm saying is, Bob, what I'm saying is that yes, morally, right? And most likely I would, but I don't think the government should be able to force me
to do so. It's completely reasonable for somebody to be selfish in that moment and say, I don't want the health complications. I don't want to have one less kidney. I don't want, I just don't want this to happen. To say no, you can't harvest my organs. I say no. They should be able to do that. I think it would be really harmful to tell doctors, ignore this patient, strap them down, and harvest their organs to save another person. I think that's bad for the doctors and the medical staff, and I think it's bad for the mother and also the child.
Wait, if you're trying to save the child's life, how would it be bad for the child? If it's going to
Psychologically
save
bad
its life. And what if it
because
was...
the reason why it would be bad is because the child will see that you are forcibly putting something onto their parent. You're forcibly making them go through surgery. And it would be, and you're also ignoring the medical staff. Do you think that this would be good for the medical staff to force them to harvest someone else's organs?
I don't think that you should be harvesting organs like this. I don't, like, again, if she disagrees with it, I don't say force her and take her organs. I say, I don't know, if
So she
no one
can
else is
say
going
no.
to help her,
So she
then
can say no.
then the obligation should be transferred to someone who will help the child.
But so we can make this clear. So she can say no. She can say, no, you can't take my organ.
Sure, yeah.
So you concede the point you made.
For that specific point, sure.
Okay, great.
I
Wait,
think
so if you
we
don't think that,
already have. Sorry, I was just
if
gonna
you
get
don't
into, like, we
think
already have the
that,
state that, like, makes us do things anyways. Like, if you don't take care of your child, you're gonna get your child taken from you by the state, right?
right, but I'm saying that that basic care does not include organ donation. That is a degree of exceptional care. And if we're going to treat essentially parental obligation as a contract, I would argue that the contract terms need to be the same for everyone. So if I'm transferring this obligation or I'm obligated to give my kidney, then it would need to be transferred to someone who is also obligated to give their kidney, which means they would need to be a genetic match. And
Well,
therefore, if they're a genetic match, it would disqualify them because people can't be held to do different standards.
Well, that's why I said, if she's not going to give it the help that it needs. So if there is someone that's willing to get, like, say, like, oh yeah, I'll give it my kidney, whatever, and then the mom's gonna say, oh yeah, like, definitely, like, that, instead of using my kidney, we'll use this kidney. Then yes, I absolutely think that that should happen. But if there's no other match in the world and this child only has its mom, I think that mom should give its kidney to that child.
We're asking in terms of legal, should it be forced? Because if we're talking about a parental obligation, it's what is the obligation here and where does it end? You said you were fighting for organs, for blood, for bone marrow. Yet when it comes to survival and the parent having to cut their flesh in order to feed their child, that was a no for you.
Well, yeah, because that's just, like, the mom's just, like, I don't know. I don't know how to go about that. I've never been hit with that scenario. It's just weird to think about someone eating someone else's flesh and thinking that's okay.
Well,
But I guess,
if
like,
you
if it was for a month, if it was for a month and it wasn't forever, then, like, I guess sure, I'll bite the bullet for that.
But
what about 9 months?
As long as it takes until someone comes to help, and if no one comes to help, then you both unalive. But I disagree with that. I don't think that it should get to that extent. But that, like, you lived on your own, you chose that life for yourself, I guess. I don't know.
so you're backtracking now because you just conceded that that was unethical.
I can
You
see,
just
no, I
conceded
said
that we
for
shouldn't be
a legal
strapping people.
point.
What?
I was going into, like, the legal point. I guess, like, that would be hard on the doctors. That's what I was kind of getting at. But I won't concede to, like, the unethical part of, like, I don't think it's unethical for you to try, like, for you to save your child.
No, I think it's unethical to force someone into a medical procedure that's going to alter their life without their consent. That is what I'm saying. That it's unethical to harvest someone's organs and forcibly take it away from them to sustain another person against their will.
Okay, so like, would you say the same for like, I don't know, a kid to be forced to get an abortion?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
Would you
I
say
don't
the
think
same
so.
for a kid to be forced to get an abortion?
Yeah, I think that that would be the medically best scenario for that child to not
Oh
go
wait, but
through
that's
labor.
forcing them to take out an organ of theirs that they could have wanted.
The fetus is not an organ of theirs.
It's like invading their bodily integrity, is it not? And this is
Giving
like
them
forced
medication.
upon them.
It would be for medication. And those children, like, I think that's just a ridiculous notion, right? Like that could unalive that child.
Wait, if you think about like what you guys just said and equate it, you can equate it exactly to forcing someone to get an abortion. Like
When
it's
we're
the same
talking
exact stance.
when we're talking about a child, do you think it would be unethical to force a child to take medication?
Um, depends.
Depends on
Depends.
what.
I don't. Yeah, like if they're sick, I'm gonna say this like medicine's going to help them and make them feel better. But if they're like pregnant and you give them this medication and now they're like bleeding and they have to get, I don't know, a DNC, then I'm gonna say like that's pretty
Uh,
unethical.
Why would they need a DNC if you give them the abortion pill?
I mean, I don't know if you know how like far along you can be, but to like get the abortion pill, sometimes something goes wrong. There could be fetal tissue stuck. There could be a lot of issues where they'll need a DNC. I don't know if you've learned about it or heard about it, but yeah, a lot of people that get
Would
an
it be
abortion have
chaotic
to
to
get a
force them
DNC
to go
later
through
on.
birth?
I'm sorry.
What percentage of medicated abortions lead to DNCs?
Oh, it's a pretty high amount. I'm not quite sure. I believe it's around like 60, 70%. Um, if they get the abortion pill at home, that's normally what can happen,
Because it's
but
0.65%.
it's 0.65%. Okay, that's what I thought.
So 65% and not even 1% are vastly, vastly different.
I was just mainly talking about the ones that are like the at-home ones, but yeah, sorry if it's going to be vastly different. Didn't mean to like miss a decimal.
It's missed 2 decimals.
I mean,
but-
well, I mean, like if
So
we,
this is the difference between the obligation. Number one, I don't think the obligation should be enforced without consent. Because that's where we would see it to be the most consistent in terms of, I don't know why you would want to force someone to be a parent. And number two, even if I agree that this obligation exists at conception, I would argue that pregnancy is not included in the obligation because no one is obligated to give their biological organs in order to sustain someone else's existence.
wait, yeah, but this is the problem. This is only temporary, right? This is only for 9 months, where this child is going to be like it's. I don't see a reason why it's justified to unalive the child in the womb because of
Do you
it just
think?
being unalive and human, and it's taking away
Do
its
you
human
think?
right.
Do you think if someone is being SA'd and the only way they can end the SA is to kill the assailant, that they should just wait and endure the SA so that they don't have to kill someone?
I don't think that that's like your biological child, so I think that that's fine to unalive them. I don't see why that's justified. That's why I'm confused. I don't see it justified being in the womb.
Violation of your bodily integrity.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Sorry, I had headphone issues. Can you say that again?
It's a violation of your bodily integrity.
Oh, okay. So, we would have to do the sleepwalking essayer, not the, because like I hold that it's a biological process that no one can consent to. So the sleepwalker it's a biological process. No one can control sleepwalking. So if it was a sleepwalking essayer, and if like the moral conscious person wakes up and decides to like continue with this violation, then I'm going to say that that's essaying the amoral agent in this topic. And due to that, I don't think we're going to compare it to pregnancy because we're not essaying our children if we consent to having them. So there's no like moral grounding for that.
I'm asking you if a rights violation, the only way to end it is to essentially cause the death of someone who is violating it. In another instance, there's a person to allow the violation to occur to avoid the death.
Right. So here's the problem, right? I just like showed you how it's with the person that's essaying and the person that is going through this biological process, right? They're not aware of what they're doing. They're an amoral agent. The same as a child. Child is an amoral agent in the womb. And we don't call them a violation because if we do call them a violation, then we would say that they're assaulting us. They'd be essaying us if they were a violation. They have to be doing something to us to be a violation.
I think forcing somebody to remain pregnant is a form of torture. We are experiencing torture when it's not consensual to remain pregnant.
I think unaliving is way worse than anything else. You're gonna unalive another person because
to stop the torture.
Because you created it in the womb.
No, like, I'm going to protect so I can not experience the torture anymore. Yes.
Wait, what are you protecting?
Being just like in the instance of being raped, that is torturous. So I should be able, with what any means necessary, to get that person off of me. And if that ends with them unaliving.
I agree with the grape. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the grape part. Yeah, if someone's raping you, absolutely, you can unalive them because they are infringing on your bodily integrity, right? They're infringing on that. But a child, you have to justify how the child is doing that to you, basically.
Because
on your bodily
pregnancy
integrity.
Is torturous.
How is it?
The UN recognizes.
What is it doing to you, though? This is my question. You're not telling me how is it infringing your rights.
Using aspects of your body against your will. Whether it is moral or not, I think is irrelevant.
But Kenzie, I do have to drop down and go to work, but thank you for having me up.
No, thank you. I appreciate you. I think regardless if the agent is moral or not, it's just a question. Does someone have to endure torture in order to preserve someone else's life?
Well, would you endure torture for your children for a certain amount of time if it meant to save their life?
So again, that goes back to consent. We're talking about consent. So if someone consents to that, that's different. But we're talking about forcefully. You're saying their consent is irrelevant.
Well, yeah, because like this is just someone that was placed. You're going to put them in a state of dependency, and I don't understand how that's going to be okay.
Argue you haven't put them in a worse condition than they were previously, and I would argue that.
You are, though. Unaliving is going to be way worse than anything else.
No, you have no obligation because prior to the state of dependency, they didn't exist. Therefore, putting them in the state of dependency put them in no worse condition than they were previously.
What do you...
And I feel you dodged. The question is, should someone unconsensually have to go through torture in order to preserve someone else's life?
If it's their biological child, and if it's going to be for a short-term amount, and it's going to save their life, then yeah.
Well, I mean, your definition of short-term is arbitrary.
Well, I mean, what's 9 months to give the child 90 years of life?
you can't ensure that they'll have 90 years of life. And again, I don't think someone should go
Sorry.
to someone else's life. That's just where you and I disagree.
Well, I mean, no one can
And I'm
ensure
sorry.
what their life is going to be.
I really tried hard, but the background noise, I just can't do it anymore. I try not to like shame parents for that because I get it. I am a parent. And I do think that was the end of the conversation. That's just where you and I disagree. I don't think someone should forcefully have to go through torture to sustain someone else's existence. And I even granted personhood. I mean, honestly, I don't mind that conversation, but I think she died on some really fucked up pills. I think that's it for the guest request, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you, everyone, for liking, for commenting, for gifting. Always.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch.